What's up, guys? Rick here with a preview for this week's Sentry. It is 2025, and I don't think I've ever been more energetic or more excited about a year. It's just a combination of finally getting into January and getting to start the year of golf again. But the way that I've got 2025 planned, I'm going to try a lot of new fun stuff for RickRunGood. I have this just renewed focus on certain aspects of the site to try to make it as great as possible. And I'm just really excited about some of the things that I have bopping around in my head. And I'm going to start there before we even get into the golf course and everything else. But I don't ask for much. But I am out pleading for a little bit of help right out of the gates here. So I tweeted this out. I've been sending emails about this, but there is a new fantasy game on the PGA Tour's website. It's similar to DraftKings in terms of the scoring, but the way that you play is different. You've got a lineup that you can set for each week, and then there's a bench and starters. There's a captain. I'll talk through this. I'll show you. I'm showing you my lineup right now, but I'll talk through a little bit of the strategy later in the video. But my request is go sign up for this. Go sign up for the RickRunGood League. There's over 230 of you right now. It is 100% free. You can play it anywhere. Their prizes are pretty good. If you're one of the segment winners or season-long winners, you get like gift cards to this PGA Tour Superstore. If you beat me in the season-long standings, I'll put everybody who beats me into a draw and give somebody $500. Might be 5 of you, might be 500 of you. But if you beat me, you're in the draw. I have tried to do this before with, the match play. I want the RickRunGood community to show up when the PGA Tour does something like this, because if they're going to invest the time and the energy to focus on fantasy golf or golf betting, I want to say, hey, we're here, right? And we've done a great job. We've had the largest private groups for the match play. I want to have the largest private group for this fantasy golf as well. So I'll put the link in the description. We'll talk about it a little bit later. Speaking of leagues and other things, the listener league for this week live on Splash Sports. Everything, I love having just one spot for everything. And that's what we're going to have in 2025 with Splash. So the tiers contest, which is 100% guaranteed, $5,000 in the prize purse, $20 entry, that is already filling up. It's already over a quarter of the way full. Link is in the description there. The big one here is the one and done. So the one and done is not going to start until Pebble Beach. So you have a couple of weeks for this, but the faster we can fill this up, the more case that we can make to get like $1 million guarantee next year. This is 500,000 guaranteed. I went to Splash. I said, like, you got to guarantee this purse. What's the biggest you can go? They said 500K. I said, great, your money, not my money. But I think we can do this. And that means somebody, no matter how many people get in this, somebody, whoops, I guess I need to open it up on the app. Somebody is going to win $50,000. It's crazy. It's crazy. There is actually a high rollers league as well. $1,000 entry. That is not guaranteed, but if we fill it, it'll be 250,000. So all those are out there. Links in the description. Let's rock and roll. Let's crush it. I'll stop begging right now and we'll get into some of the analysis. So course-wise, the Plantation course at Kapalua, very familiar golf course. I describe it as incredibly unique and extreme, quite honestly. 7,600 yards is rare at sea level, very large greens, very wide fairways. It's a par 73. There's a lot of things that I'm going to dive into in just a second. But one of the things that I've been doing is I've been trying to show more of the flyover information, the aerials, the statistical breakdown. I've been trying to do a little bit of a magic board situation. I created a short segment for Kapalua, which should be a really good primer, and I'm going to drop it in right here. 2025 starts right now. We are going to the Plantation course at Kapalua, and there's a couple of interesting things that I want to cover. So let's get right into it. I find this to be one of the more statistically unique golf courses on the PGA Tour schedule. For example, the fairway width here on number 18 is 93 yards. So you could almost put an entire football field in that fairway and still find the short grass. The item that's going to pop up all week long is the yardage on the scorecard, which is 7,596 yards. Remember, that's right at sea level. So you're thinking this has got to play very long. No, it does not, because this is a very strange situation that we have going on where the average hole length at the Plantation course is 419 yards. That is the third longest on the PGA Tour schedule, but 108 yards as the average approach is by far the shortest average approach on the PGA Tour schedule. So this massive delta between how long the holes are, very long, and how short the approach shots are, very short, means that something wacky is going on here, and that wackiness all comes down to undulation. That is the word of the week. It is something that you are going to hear early and often because the ball rolls consistently. I'll show you more on that in just 1 second. But before we get to that, I want to point out one of the things that I find most statistically interesting about the Kapalua course, and that there is almost no penalty at all for missing the fairway. The penalty for missing the fairway, think about this, is 0.027 strokes. That is the lowest penalty of missing the fairway on any course on the PGA Tour schedule. Not even a tenth of a stroke. No. 2/100ths of a stroke every time you miss the fairway. Essentially no penalty at all. And there's a couple of reasons for that. First and foremost, there is not a lot of rough. The rough that you do find is not very thick, not very penal, and you're going to have a lot of guys who, no matter how good of a shot they hit, are going to be playing out of the rough. So here's a couple of examples. The first hole and the sixth hole, I think, are really good examples here. The first hole, everything, once you get over this hill, everything runs out of the fairway and gets collected here in the rough. You can see why there are so many balls being played from there, because basically everybody who hits the fairway in any spot rolls out and ends up playing out of the rough. Number 6 is another example of that. If you are landing it anywhere in here, this is all rolling down, undulation, and coming down here to this collection area. And again, everyone is playing out of the rough. There's just nowhere for the ball to stay. So that's what's happening here. It's why only 57% of fairways are going to be hit this week. Guys are going to be finding the rough truly to no fault of their own. And then with the way that the scorecard is set up, there's the par fives being very gettable. Some of the par fours being quite short. There is a ton of holes. In fact, there are 9 different approaches on the par fours and the par fives. This does not even count the par threes. 9 different approaches that are either 150 yards or more, or 40 yards or less. Okay, so what happens is that means you are either hitting mid irons, longer irons, those who are trying to reach the par fives in 2, or if you are not getting up into the par fives in 2, you're technically your approach, your third shot into a par 5 is 40 yards or less. There are a couple of short par 4s in which you can drive it pretty far up near the green. So I know what you're thinking. Well, Rick, if we know that these are where a lot of the shots are going to be coming from, who excels the most in these areas? So what I did is I plugged in a quick model only looking at approach shots from these ranges. We're talking about 50 to 75 yards and then 150 up to 225. Not considering anything else, no putting, no driving, nothing whatsoever. The number 1 player that popped up in my model, Ludwig Oberg. Number 2, Colin Morikawa. Morikawa is on the verge of winning a lot. He plays beautifully in January, has never won in January, should have won, played well enough to win golf tournaments last year, did not end up winning any golf tournaments last year, seems to be on the verge of a major breakout. Now with Scotty Scheffler not teeing it up this week, opens the field up pretty considerably. So should be a good one. Hope that was helpful. Hope you enjoy. Okay, well, thanks, Rick. Here's the other things that I didn't mention there. When you start playing out of the same collection areas, right, or the same landing zones, it takes a lot of the first shot advantage away from guys and turns it into a second shot golf course, which is what I think ends up happening a lot at Kapalua, right? Everybody plays from the same spots. So now it's an approach situation from, 150 yards and out, and then shorter shots, getting up and down for birdie on the par fives, stuff like that. And you can start to see that show up in the correlation, right? Strokes gained approach ranks 3rd. If you've never seen this before, this is just a straight correlation model or regression model, excuse me, where there's no opinion in this whatsoever. I just take all the data and compare it from every single stat that's available to finishing positions at each golf course. And that means that there are only two other courses on the PGA Tour schedule in which strokes gained approach is more correlated to success. You're also going to see the top two are long approaches from over 200 yards, approaches from 250 to 275. That's the ability to pick apart the par fives and the longer approaches that you have into some of the par fours, or depending on where they put a tee box on a par three. So really, really critical. And then you can see as we go down, approaches are still very much in play, but you get like some strokes gained putting numbers, you get birdie average, you get birdie or better conversion rates. So when you take all that information, I think we are looking for great second shot players who can make putts, who can make birdies. That's what I'm looking for. And if we look at those golfers over the last 36 rounds, the guys that get the best fit improvement, adjusted fit, are not really names you'd expect, right? Scotty Scheffler is usually on the top of this list. He's not playing this week. Rory McIlroy often on the top of this list. He's not playing this week. Xander Schauffele is often on top of this list. He still is. He's fifth. But you get Max Grazerman, very extreme golfer on an extreme golf course. That could go really well or very poorly. Harry Hall, kind of the same thing. Davis Thompson, who pretty excited for in 2025. And then Hideki Matsuyama are 1 through 4. Now, if you watched my rankings video during the offseason of the top 50 players for 2025, you're probably going to hear me reiterate some of the points that I had about those golfers again, because there's still guys I'm bullish on, right? That video came out 2 weeks ago, a week ago, and no golf has been played since then. So the guys that I liked then, I'm still very much going to like now, but we can lay that over the plantation course and go from there. This is the cheat sheet at RickRunGood.com, and basically everything you see from this point forward will be my website, RickRunGood.com. It's a giant golf database with visualizations and tools and models that is designed specifically for fantasy golf, specifically for golf betting. So I obviously really like it, and I think you will too. What happened with this pricing? Very strange pricing on DraftKings. They released this pricing either before they knew what the field was, or I don't know when, but they had Scotty Scheffler in this field. I don't blame them for that. He withdrew. He puncture on the right hand with glass, needed surgery to clean it up. He probably will not be back until February, 3 to 4 weeks. Rory McIlroy was in the original pricing. Tommy Fleetwood was in there. Shane Lowry was in there. These are guys that were eligible but not playing this week. So when you remove those golfers, what you have is Xander Schauffele at $11,000 and then nobody else above 10 grand. A big gap down to to Patrick Cantlay and then Ludwig Oberg at 99 and 98. So we don't really see pricing look like this very much. Let's start with Xander here. He is the $11,000 man. He was obviously barring, removing Scotty Scheffler, just the best player in the world last year, a couple of major championship wins, the nonstop top 10 finishes. If you look at his history at the Sentry, which, has gone through a handful of iterations, it was a Tournament of Champions, and now it's just if you finish if you get to the Tour Championship or win or top, they've got all the different criteria now. So it is a larger field than normal, but still a no-cut event being held the first week of January at the Plantation Course. So there's a lot of stickiness to that type of play, and Xander's been awesome here. He withdrew in 2023. Remember that? It was like he hurt his wrist or something. It was the first time he'd ever been injured. Withdrew after, I think, 2 rounds. Yeah, after 2 rounds. Was fine the next week or his next start and probably hasn't looked back since. And then he played here last year, finished T10. He won this in 2019. Worth the price, right? We see these guys that are kind of the clear number one in fields, never priced adequately for DFS purposes. And Xander's here with great course history, great recent form, great everything, great skill rating, just the best player in this field. The 9K range is a lot more interesting. When I ran that model of long iron play and short iron play, Ludwig Oberg popped up. What I don't like about Ludwig is that his best weapon, the driver, does get negated a little bit here at the Plantation course. Everybody plays from the same spot, right? So if you're a little bit off, you can lose strokes in a big way. Like if you don't get the same rollout, some of your guys are literally 400-yard drives. If you don't crest the correct ridge and you're at 280, like the stats don't add up very well. They can go south very quickly, and that's kind of what happened last year. Finished T47, lost strokes in every single category. I'm not worried about him doing that again, but I am worried about just kind of his best weapon being negated a little bit, and still the fact that he's lost strokes putting in 6 of his last 7. That is enough of a concern for me. Patrick Cantlay, just going to need to wait and see, but then you're getting me to load up on probably Justin Thomas, probably Hideki Matsuyama, potentially even Sam Burns at the bottom of this range. I skipped over Victor Hovland. Another tough start for Victor. If you haven't seen the image yet, here's an x-ray of his right foot. That's the pinky toe. That's the one that went wee all the way home, and it is broken. He confirmed that with Eurosport. Stubbed his toe on a bed frame, broke his toe. As of this moment, which admittedly is, I'm either recording this Sunday night or Monday morning, he is apparently going to try to play. Has not made a determination on whether that is actually going to happen yet. He's going to try to tape it up, get some painkillers in him, and we'll see. Hoping to get more information as the week goes on. We're going to do the Wednesday live chat this week, 3 p.m. Eastern time on the Rick Run Good YouTube channel. Maybe we'll have some more clarity about Victor Hovland as we get a little bit closer. But Justin Thomas is here at $9,700. Justin Thomas, I've been quite bullish on for 18 months or so. I think there's a pretty good chance that he wins a major championship this year. You've heard me say a lot that he's back to being vintage JT. And what that means is positive off the tee, elite second shot, best around the green player in the world, and horrible putter. No doubt about it. He has won this event twice. He has finished third 2 more times. He has a T5, all while being vintage JT. The putter's an issue. He's gained strokes putting in 2 out of his last 4. And in fact, if you add up all 4 of those, he is right around an even putter. So the losses that he's had in 23 and 22 were smaller losses than normal, but he's still a very bad putter, but that has not stopped him from winning plenty of golf tournaments in the past. He usually gets off to a really good start in January. The Hawaii swing is a place where he's had a lot of success. So I'll be loading up on JT at 9,700, and then Hideki. Hideki is perpetually, I don't want to say misunderstood, just overlooked. $9,600 as, again, one of the best second shot players in the world. That's what we're looking for. Best second shot players in the world. He's improved his putting, even though he's lost strokes putting in 3 in a row. One of them was the President's Cup, which is very wonky when it comes to statistics. But the 3 prior to that were very good putting performances. If you go back even farther, starting with the Masters or even going back to 2024, 2024 is probably the best putting year of Hideki Matsuyama's career. And then obviously the win at Riviera, the win at Memphis late in the year. One of the concerns, though, about Hideki is that over the last handful of years, he's not been good. He has not been good at the Plantation course. I don't know what's going on here. It's not like they've made a ton of wholesale changes or anything has really changed on his end, but he's gotten off to some really poor starts here in 2024, 2023, and 2022. The stuff before that is a lot better, but it is starting to get pretty far out in terms of something to consider be fairly relevant. So those 2 I'm happy to take the chances on, right? I've got concerns about both of them, but I think with those concerns comes plenty of upside to keep me pretty interested. And then Sam Burns. Sam Burns at $9,000 is the type of golfer that when you get an extreme golf course, I sometimes like to stack like extremes on extremes. And I think when we get down to Max Grazerman, you're going to hear me say something similar. But Sam Burns, the way that his 2 skill sets come together, approach play and putting, when that works, he can win. When it doesn't, he might finish dead last. And on a golf course where drivers being negated a little bit, that's probably good for him. He can lean into the fairway through putting, through the putting surface aspect of his games. I think that is much better. If you look at what he did basically after the PGA Championship, just a bunch of top 10, a bunch of top 15 finishes. I think this T9 at the US Open was his best major championship finish of his career. So really started to find his stride a little bit later in the year. And I think that the range of outcomes for Sam is massive, which you could argue for basically the entire $9,000 range, which is kind of also why I think you might need to get Xander in here, because are you super comfortable with any of these guys? Cantlay, who's coming off the worst year of his career, Ludwig's best weapon is negated and he hasn't played well here. JT still cannot putt and has Hideki hasn't played well here in the last couple of years. Sungjae's good, not great. Victor's got a broken toe. Tony Finau's not playing well, might be going to live. Sam Burns could finish first or like I could make a case against all of these guys, which I think makes for the 9K range probably determining the outcome of a lot of these big GPPs, because they are, by definition, the best players in the field. And there is no Scotty. They're going to be heavily owned, but there's a pretty big range of outcomes for all of those guys. Before we even get further than this, notice a name I didn't mention here. It's Collin Morikawa. I mean, DraftKings has just botched this field. I don't know what they were thinking. Morikawa has always been eligible for this field. As of me recording this, he is officially in the field. I don't know why he is not in the player pool. So they're going to have to add him on either Monday or Tuesday of this week. And I imagine they're going to plug him in probably somewhere in the 10K range, if not the high nines. I don't really care where it is. I'm in on Collin Morikawa until proven otherwise. Best player in 2024 that didn't win a golf tournament. Technically, he won the raw stroke version of the Tour Championship. That doesn't matter because he finished second at that event because of the starting strokes. If everybody's going to play from the same position, the guy whose approach play is one of the best in the world, give me that guy. The putter can be really good and really bad. I'm okay with that. He usually gets off to good starts. His January, I wrote this up in my newsletter for this week, link in the description, which is why I know all of this. But like his January metrics are nuts, right? He usually gets off to a very hot start at the beginning of the year. He probably has a very good offseason regimen. Look at what he's done here. No finish worse than 7th. Hasn't won this golf tournament. Every way you shake this, it's like best player in 2024 who didn't win. Probably best results at the Sentry without a win. Best in January without a win. We are like ratcheting up for all of the I don't want to say regression to the mean, like everything to normalize to Collin Morikawa having a massive year, right? Like I just don't see any other way. I guess we'll find out in 12 months, but it feels like that. I guess we'll see where DraftKings wants to drop the guy, but I imagine it's going to be pretty darn expensive. Here's the 8K range, and we're actually going to start at the bottom and work our way up. I've already alluded to Max Grazerman a couple of times. Really unique skill set in the way that he does it, where he drives it so well and putts so well. The driver, again, if we negate it for other guys, we've got to negate it a little bit for Max. The good news is he's still pretty good in the other areas of his game. And talk about guys who did everything but win, right? Just routinely finishing inside the top 5, coming down the stretch. Everything after the US Open was spectacular. If you go to the trends tool, which looks at the last X number of rounds for everybody, I've got it loaded up for the last 36. He's the best strokes gained trend player, which what that means is it takes his 100 round baseline and then combines it with what he's done over the last 36. So he's basically a 0.7 per round golfer. Add in the 1.2 over his baseline that he's playing right now, and he's at a 1.9. Is it reasonable to think he is going to continue that? I don't know, right? He's probably not a 1.9 player. He's almost certainly not a 1.9 player over the next 100 rounds. But is he a 1.5? He might be, and that's really, really good high-end golfer on the PGA Tour. So because this is a unique, again, extreme golf course, Grazerman falls into that Sam Burns crowd where this could be first, this could be last, but I like the chances that he's closer to first than last. And then also near the bottom here is Robert McIntyre. He's $8,200. If you look back at that trends tool, McIntyre is a top 6 golfer in terms of trends. So he's playing a third of a stroke per round over his baseline. He's doing it in the short game categories, but if you look at his overall metrics, look at what he did all year long. Hardly took a week off. Tour championship comes and goes. He plays 5 events on the DP World Tour, all of them top 25 finishes, some of them really strong fields, finishes 7th at the Hero World Challenge. That's only a field of, I think this year it was 18 or 20. But now look at the deeper, gains across the board, gains throughout the bag. I do have the metrics, the strokes gain metrics from the DP World Tour. I have an agreement with them. Live Golf, all that stuff. RickRunGood.com, just full picture of stat results and metrics and everything. So cannot recommend it enough, and I'm always trying to make improvements there. Then you've got Sahith here at 8,600, Akshay 89. If you watch my top 50 rankings, pretty high on both of those guys. But I think Sahith is interesting with the way the course sets up for him. He finished runner-up here last year. He's not a good driver, right? Like he kind of flares it all over the place, hits it far enough. Again, there is no penalty for coming out of the rough. As long as you are not losing your golf ball in the really high stuff, and as long as you're just getting it generally in the correct direction and the correct side of the fairway, which might be 50 yards wide, you're going to be fine. And then after that, can heat up on the second shot. Very good short game. The thing that kind of gets lost here, because some of these shots do get looped into around the green play, is around the green in terms of the course key stats ranked 3rd, which means there's only 2 other courses in which that's more important. Again, the stats that come out of this event provide really nuts numbers, right? Like there's been 400 drives over 400 yards here in the last couple of years, which was like 3 times as many as any other course. So you get some really weird, just kind of wonky stuff, but still worth considering. A lot of those around the green shots are the 3rd shots into par 5s, right? Can you just knock it up there into tap in range and secure your birdie? That's the way a lot of birdies are made at the Plantation course. And that's why I think it falls into around the green being really a popular or an important stat. And that's kind of where I expect Sahith to be able to pick up a lot of those birdies on the short par 4s. And of course the par 5s. The 7K range has a ton of great golfers. I probably misranked Davis Thompson in my top 50. I think he was 52nd or 53rd, so he didn't even make the list. I think I screwed that up, and I think I regret it already. I've been so high on him as one of the better tee to green players really over the last, let's go to the last 50 rounds, minimum 25, everybody in this field, and we'll just do just events being played on the PGA Tour. So I'm definitely cherry picking a little bit to get Davis Thompson up there, but it goes Xander Schauffele first from tee to green, Justin Thomas, then Davis Thompson. Hideki Matsuyama is 4th behind Davis Thompson. So that is obviously something that you want to see. It's something that translates everywhere on planet Earth. And now he got the victory, so you should think he's brimming with confidence right now. I think I probably screwed up his ranking. I probably should have had him in the mid 30s, even as high as like 28. And it's a very difficult exercise to do that, especially when you don't have like a real like how are we going to grade this at the end of the year? Is it just going to be off of strokes gained or whatever? So I actually found that to be a very difficult and fun exercise, but I think I mispriced Davis Thompson. The other guy that I am super excited about is Siwoo Kim. The ability for him to potentially find the putter, which he's done in 4 of his last 6. Awesome. His ball striking was out of control in 2024 all over the globe. We just got to get him to find the flat stick a little bit. And then really the rest of this range, I think we can take a couple of swings at talent, meaning Nick Dunlap at $7,200 now for the first time getting his, starting a year as a professional after what was probably a whirlwind for him. Austin Eckroat, I love for 2024. And then Max Homa, $7,100 on Max Homa. Remember, we are, let's see, 8 months removed. The Masters, after the Masters, I think we would have looked up and said, Max Homa is like the 12th best player in the world, right? He had just rattled off a great finish to 2023 that ended with a win on the DP World Tour. He started off 2024 with a T14 at the Sentry and a T13 at Farmers. He went T16 at Riviera, T8 at Bay Hill, right? Rolls it in, and then the T3 at the Masters. Even the T8, I mean, even longer than that, the T8 at the Wells Fargo, which is now called the Truist. I mean, what a great start to the year after a great 2023, and falls off a cliff. Now, I mean, as I just scroll through this profile, what do you see? End of 2023 into 2024, ton of green, ton of green, ton of green. The slump, which is not just red, but incredibly dark red that tanks all of his metrics. And then a kind of a turnaround here. A little bit of starting the green again. Played much better at the President's Cup. Played much better at the Zozo. Played okay at the Pro Tour, and then went back to the Nedbank, which is the event he won last year on the DP World Tour, and finished T14. So $7,100 is, well, I actually thought it was going to be pretty darn cheap. He was $6,400 at the BMW, but rarely, if ever, in the 7K range or lower. And now with a little bit of extra time, like, I'm buying. I want to be early on max, not late. Offers a lot of salary cap relief at $7,100. The same can't be necessarily said for Will Zalatoris, who I will probably be late on as opposed to early. Just kind of worried about some of the changes that he had to make to his swing to protect the back, and played well enough coming down the stretch. But I think I just need to see more. I think I need to see it more often and much more consistently. The rest of the 6K range, Aaron Rai is $6,700 and was one of the, top 15 players on tour last year. If you look at the top 50 or last 50 rounds, Aaron Rai was like 14th. Yeah. I mean, a stroke per round, doing it in all the best metrics, doing it throughout the bag, not a ton of weaknesses here. That to me is a little bit of a misprice there at $6,700. He and Max Homa alone offer a lot of, especially in salary cap games, are going to offer a lot of flexibility. And then if you need to go lower than that, some of these guys I don't think are worth playing. I'm not going to buy the Peter Malnati, Chris Gotterup, Bryce Garnett, Patton Kizzire situation. You could definitely get me to buy Nick Taylor. You could definitely get me to buy Matt McCarty. I'm fine with all of that. And then the other, like, can we just take the talent of Matthew Pavone, now working with Mark Blackburn, new swing coach? Is that good enough? We've gotten a little bit better play from him. The bar was very, very low. He also just kind of fell off a cliff after like Pebble Beach last year, after Singapore. But if you were desperate to get 6,100. Like if they come out and drop Colin Morikawa at 10,500 and you need to have both he and Xander Schauffele in your lineup, Matthew Pavone at 6,100 is not the end of the world. Let's see what the model thinks. And for this, let's think about how we want to do this here. So we're not going to have Colin Morikawa in here because DraftKings is silly. So let's do a couple of things. We want to do for some of these no cut events, I find that using strokes gained 3+, the frequency in which a golfer gains 3 or more strokes to the field, even 2 or more, is pretty useful because it gives everybody a baseline and says, okay, you're guaranteeing 4 rounds, have at it. Then we're going to go to approach play here. And I'm going to put a lot into approach. So I'm going to say approach for the last 36 is 10. So that gives us a good baseline. But then I am going to do like 8 on 50 to 75 yards. Then I'm going to do 8 on, 150 to 170, those categories that we saw earlier. So basically the short shots and the long shots. Then we're going to go to bonus putting, which is, I'll put 15 on bonus putting, and I'm just going to put 10 on strokes gained putting over the last 24. Bonus putting is how many of the putts do you make, and then how many, which is like inside 5 feet, and then how many from outside 20, just kind of like a birdie making situation. And then I am, because we do always get the same field size for the most part on the same golf course, same time of year. I do think using strokes gained Kapalua is is critical. And wow, look at who our number one golfer is. One Victor Hovland, the man with 9 toes. Did not see that coming. Still very good on the long shots. Very good on. Approach play has been much better. I didn't do anything around the green wise, which is why he's not getting beat up here. Wow, that is really interesting. Xander is number 2. Ludwig is number 3. Cantlay is 4. Hideki is 5. Just some guys that are outpacing their salaries. Akshay is 8,900. He's 6th. Adam Scott is 8,100. He's 8th. Matt Fitzpatrick is 7,200. He's 9th. Eric Cole, 6,900. He's 11th. Really interested to see where they drop in Colin Morikawa into this. I think he's got to be like $10,500, something like that. We'll see. Okay. Let me show you what I've done with this PGA Tour fantasy game here. So the way that their rules work, there are season-long rankings, obviously in standings, but then there are segments. Where are here we go, segments. So each segment, 3 of them, they've got like 3, 6, 9, 10 or 12 events in them. So the thing is, you can only use golfers 3 times per segment. Okay. Well, hold on. Let me pull this back up here because I want to have access to the segments. So what I kind of thought, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong here, let me know what you think about this, was I picked 4 golfers for my starters that are just studs. And then for my bench, I picked 2 guys that I'm probably not going to use much in the first ever, maybe. Because here's my issue. If I load this field up with 6 studs, like if I have Hideki on my bench, there's a good chance I never play Hideki because you can sub them in after each round. You can make swaps. Like I might never use Hideki this week. And now I've used him once in this segment. I guess maybe having access to it, but there's no cut. Like I feel like swapping out is better when I see a guy's going to miss a cut. I can swap a guy in who has made it through. So I don't know if there's a lot of value to have really good players on your bench right now. So I picked guys like Nico Echeverria and Christian Bezeno, who I'm probably not going to use at all. And I'm likely to just roll with these 4, Morikawa, Schauffele, Ludwig, and Sam Burns for all 4 rounds. They're guaranteed 4 rounds. So I didn't see a lot of benefit in stacking my bench as well. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know about that. Let me know what you think about that. And I also think I can burn these guys because Colin, like how many events do you think Colin's going to play in the opening segment? He's going to play the Sentry, probably Farmers, Pebble, Phoenix, Riv. That would be like 4 weeks in a row. And then API. I think at most he plays 6 times, but probably fewer than that. So I'm going to get to use him 3 out of 6, so I don't know. Let me know what you think about that. I think that's an interesting little strategy to play. The other thing is you get double points for the captain and you cannot swap your captain. I think he has to stay on your bench or he has to stay in your lineup the entire time. So you can't, like if he misses the cut, you're kind of stuck with it. I went with Morikawa again, just very bullish there. The other thing about this is when you pick your team, it tells you, how do I do this? See, I don't want to do that. I don't want to. Here we go. It tells you what the ownership is for everybody. So I can see that I've picked 3 of the highest owned golfers for this week. Xander's in 63% of lineups already. So I don't love that, but at the same time, I went down to Burns at 12% because I thought that was pretty good. And then also, like it's the first week. What do I really care about ownership? You know what I mean? So I don't know. There's a lot of strategy involved in this, which is what I like about it. But I'm interested to see how you guys are going to rock with this. Again, get involved. We're just at another, 40 people to the league. So we're up to 247 right now. Get in this, get in the splash stuff. We're going to have an unbelievable 2025. It's going to be killer. Cannot wait for it. I think that's it. Everything you need is in the description. Talk to you guys. See you on Wednesday.